Râvnită încă din secolul al XIX-lea de către Statele Unite ale Americii, Cuba a trăit multă vreme sub semnul amenințării puternicului său vecin. Ca să înțelegem mai bine, Cuba a fost ultima colonie spaniolă de pe continentul american care și-a câștigat independența după ani de luptă. Iar intervenția americană din 1898, steagul Statelor Unite a arborat pe cea mai înaltă clădire din Santiago de Cuba, primul oraș eliberat de sub tutela spaniolă, au fost privite ca un afront care a marcat profund memoria colectivă a locuitorilor insulei. Ocupația militară și multiplele intervenții armate ale Statelor Unite în afacerile interne ale țării, în primele decenii ale secolului 20, le-a reamintit cubanezilor cât de iluzorie era suveranitatea lor. În 1933, tot America a impus și figura lui Fulgencio Batista, care a condus țara brutal în două etape. Prima din 1933 până în 1944 și cea de-a doua din 1952 până în 1958. Originile Revoluției cubaneze din 1959, conduse de Fidel Castro, se regăsesc tocmai în convulsiile acestei istorii chinuite, alcătuită din umilință și frustrări, ofense și nemulțumiri. Aspirația unanimă a tuturor cubanezilor a fost de a se elibera de influența nord-americană, de a-și decide propriul destin. Căutarea unei adevărate independențe, dorința unei vieți mai demne, au alimentat mișcarea revoluționară care a răsturnat dictatura lui Fulgencio Batista și a pus în aplicare cel mai radical proiect de transformare social-economică din istoria Americii Latine. Pedro Fuentes Cid s-a născut la Havana în 1939. Familia sa, de cultivator de trestie de zahăr, era una înstărită. Copilăria și-a petrecut-o alături de frații Fidel și Raul Castro, care locuiau la o fermă aflată în vecinătate. Pedro s-a implicat încă de la vârsta de 16 ani în lupta subversivă de răsturnare a regimului dictatorial al lui Fulgencio Batista. S-a antrenat într-o tabără de gherilă din Republica Dominicană. A ajuns să lupte alături de Fidel Castro, de Raul și de Che Guevara. A fost condamnat la închisoare chiar de fostul său camarad de arme, Fidel Castro.
I was invited with 5 more people to meet with him. At that time, I used to be like a student organization activist, student leader, they call me, you know. So anyway, they invited me to participate in the meeting with him. He had just left the jail in Cuba after the attack in the Moncada barrack. So he arrived in Miami, and this lady called Marisol Alba gave him an apartment so he could stay, several apartments, because he came with other people. He came with Raul, his brother, and some other of the big shots. Now, not Che, because Che he met in Mexico. So anyway, we were invited there, and then he knew me. He knew my family, because my Aunt Pepilla's farm is contiguous to Angel Castro's farm in Virán. So the best friends of Fidel and Raul were my cousins, you know, and my cousin William and my cousin Enrique José. Enrique José was the oldest, so he used to take Fidel when he was a kid to school in Belén, the Jesuit school. And he was in law school in the University of Havana, so when they were vacations like now. Today is the school day here, no? When we arrived, we introduced and he said, yeah, you're from Holguín, that's contiguous to Iran. We're like neighbors. And I said, yes, sir, yes, I am. So he said, sit down. We all sat down, and then he made coffee in this percolator. So he put it in the kitchen and started talking. Talk. Like there was no tomorrow. So anyway, the coffee burned, the coffee boiled. I smelled the coffee, and he did, the coffee. He went, picked out the coffee, served the coffee, and brought it together, brought it to us. And then he asked people, how was the coffee? Oh, very good, doctor. And he asked me, student, how is the coffee? And I said, you know what? Terrible, because it's burnt. And then he looked at the others and he said, this is the only sincere man here. And to tell you the truth, I didn't like the guy very much from the beginning. On that, I stayed there after the others left because he wanted me to stay. So I stayed there. And he started asking me questions about the family and everything else. And I asked him if that I had heard in the news that he said that before that year was over, we were going to be, this group was going to be either free or martyrs because they were going to land. I said, okay, well, that sounds good, and where are you going? He said, no, we are traveling all over the United States. We're organizing the 26th of July movement, and then from here, we'll go to Mexico. And then from there, we'll go to Cuba. And I said, well, if you want me to, I'll go with you. But since I was a minor, he was afraid that maybe they would accuse him of kidnapping me, because. So he told me, well, you know what? I think it's best if maybe you stay here and sell 26th of July bonds to people and help us with the 26th of July thing. And I said, you know what, Fidel, I don't like to ask people for money, so I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I participated in the revolution, but not exactly with them. I participated with Aureliano Sanchez Arango, who was the ideologue of the social democratic movement in Latin America. He had helped people like Rómulo Betancourt, Don José Figueres, Rómulo Betancourt from Venezuela, Don Pepe Figueres from Costa Rica. He had helped them climb to power when he was minister in the Carlos Prio government in Cuba. He was Minister of Foreign Affairs and also Minister of Education, Aureliano Sánchez Arango. And also Carlos Prio Socarrás, who was the president that had been deposed by Fulgencio Batista. My father had to leave Cuba because he was opposed to the regime, and they were looking for him to kill him, the Batista police. So we had to move to Miami. So I love the history of my country. I was the only one in my school to read books about José Martí, who was the most prominent patriot that we have in Cuba. We have in Cuba. And since I was the only one that read those books in the library, the librarian of Miami Senior High called me one day, and she gave me the whole 2 boxes of books that she had received on the, it was 50 years from his death, or I don't remember how many years, but anyway, she gave him to me. And in my room, I had a picture of José Martí in the wall, and I just wanted to fight for my country, and so I started participating in everything that I could, and then there was a plan between Carlos Prio Socarrás and Fidel to do 2 landings, Fidel with a grandma, which he bought with money that Carlos Prio gave him, $31,000. Somebody took it to Fidel in El Paso, Texas, when he was in Mexico, and gave him the money to buy the grandma. And then we had another boat called the Corintia in Dominican Republic. Carlos Prio made an arrangement with the president of, or whatever you want to call it, in Santo Domingo, and they set up a training camp there for guerrilla warfare. The training was very good and very tough because it was guerrilla warfare training. I was lucky enough that on my 18th birthday, okay, I was already, had been trained there for quite a while, and then the chief of the battalion nominated me officer. And then I was a second lieutenant in command of 1 platoon. The platoon of the youngest and more problematic people that were there, you know. So, but they got along with me fine, and I had no problem with them. And then we had some very good training given there by you know, a person that later on became like a general, the army, the chief of the army in Dominican Republic, and we kept on the relationship, and I saw him many times. So anyway, Fidel Castro had to land first, so he couldn't keep up the plan with that he had with Prio. Very few people know this, but he had to come to Cuba first because the police in Mexico was paid by Batista to go get him off his camp, take his arms, take the boat, and you know, maybe put him in jail or at least deactivate what he was doing. So he had to leave. And so he left before we did. I was in Dominican Republic, and I heard the news that he had landed. And then the Cuban newspaper said that they had wiped them out, that they were all dead, which was not true. And then later on, we found out that a group was separated from the other that landed in the Granma. And, but like 12 of them, approximately, made it up to Sierra Maestra, which was a group in which was Raúl, Che, and some others. So they went up to Sierra Maestra, and that's when the war started in Cuba, in guerrilla warfare. We were finished our training, and then the government of Cuba visited the government there of Dominican Republic and forced them to get us out. My family, my father went there to pick me up, and I remember that when we went to the airport, the person that was there said, where can I get you a ticket to? And he said, where is the first plane leaving to? And they said, oh, the first plane to Puerto Rico. I said, okay, 2 tickets. Because he just wanted to leave, you know. He knew he had me, and then he wanted to take me out. So then I went with him to Puerto Rico. There we met a cousin of my mother who was there at the Caribe Hilton in San Juan. And we had a very good time, and then we went to Miami. In Miami, I kept on working with some other young Cubans, and we went to missions in Cuba.
Pedro Fuentes nu era comunist, iar alunecarea spre ideologia marxistă a lui Fidel a fost percepută de el drept o trădare inacceptabilă a idealurilor Revoluției. Și cum ar fi putut reacționa altfel decât să încerce să răstoarne regimul lui Castro? În 1961 a fost capturat de către milițiile lui Fidel și aruncat în închisoare. Trecutul său revoluționar l-a scăpat de pedeapsa cu moartea, dar a fost condamnat la 30 de ani de temniță. Avea atunci 22 de ani. În 1976, o amnistie colectivă l-a eliberat pe Pedro după 16 ani de închisoare. Avea 38 de ani. În 1978, la 2 ani de la eliberare, a reușit să fugă în Statele Unite, acolo unde l-aștepta toată familia sa.
We were in a war. So you can imagine, there were not peaceful missions. No. Were missions that we had to accomplish. Like, military missions. So anyway, we did that, and then finally, we won the war. And after we won the war, the Fidel started, and to organize the government and everything else. He had a lot of support from the Cuban people because he had a lot of followers and a lot of people that helped them economically to rise up to power and to be a figure. The United States was one of the main people that helped them. The New York Times, they sent newspaper people to Sierra Maestra. The person that fought the most there, more bravely, in Sierra Maestra, was Uber Matos. So Uber Matos was a comandante, and he is a chief of a guerrilla group, a guerrilla column, they used to call it. So he was the one that did the most of the fighting. Fidel Castro didn't fight too much. I don't know if you remember, if you have seen the pictures of Fidel Castro when he was up in the Sierra Maestra. He had a rifle with a sight, with this long sight, to shoot from 400, 500, 600 meters. Not in front of the enemy, you know what I mean? Which is different. So that fighting was done by Uber Matos, who was very, very good friend of mine. So Uber Matos, like a year after we won the war, or a little more than a year, he decided that the communists were rising up. They asked Fidel Castro that they were communists, that he was communist, and he said, "No, I am not communist." And they asked him, "Are you going to do elections?" He says, "Of course, we're going to have elections here. We're not ready yet, but we're going to have elections." That was 62 years ago. Uber decided to quit. So he sent a letter to Fidel saying that he renounced of his position as a military chief of the province of Camagüey, and that he renounced of his position as a comandante, which was the highest military at the moment, and he wanted to go back to his hometown and teach, because he was a teacher. He didn't want to be anymore, So then people that knew him asked him why. He says, "Because communists are making my life impossible here. They don't let me work. They don't let me do anything. They are just criticizing me because they know that I'm not communist. They know that I am anti-communist." It was published in all the papers. I remember that I was at the officers' club in my hometown in Holguín. They had like a bar there, and I saw it on TV that he had renounced. They were in the news, you know, and that he had sent a letter to Fidel Castro. And then later on, Uber told me what happened himself. What happened was that Fidel Castro sent Camilo Cienfuegos to arrest him, arrest Uber and all his captains. Then he called Uber and said, you know, they have, I have orders here from Fidel to arrest you. I'm going to go there and talk to you. I want you to talk to the people in the, because he was in the military fortress of Camagüey. He was the military chief of Camagüey. So he said, I'll call those people and tell them not to let us go in and talk to you. And he said, of course, you know, it's no problem. You know, I'm not at war with you guys or anything like that. You can come in. So then Camilo Cienfuegos came in. Camilo was a very good friend of Uber also. Very good friend. So Camilo asked Uber, you know, why are you renouncing? And then Uber said, because the communists here, you know, make my life impossible. They don't let me work. They don't let me do anything. They are just criticizing me and creating problems here. And I don't want to tolerate that. And I think the revolution is taking the wrong turn because Fidel Castro, I have talked to Fidel, I have told him that there are problems here with the communists, and he doesn't do anything. On the contrary.
Khrushchev is good friend, good human friend.
Khrushchev liked your speech.
Wonderful person. Wonderful and sympathetic. Very sympathetic. What do you want that we do? You leave us without petroleum. Khrushchev eat petroleum. You leave us without sugar. Khrushchev buy sugar. Here, your leaders speak about aggression to Cuba. Khrushchev speak about defending Cuba. You to take our airplane. Khrushchev plane is our plane. Khrushchev is friend.
So, are you a communist, Fidel?
Well, wait for the history. The history will say what we are.
I know that Raúl, he had met this KGB agent in an international conference that was held in Vienna a long time ago. And he was approached there by KGB. Okay? So this KGB agent became very friendly with Raúl, and then Raúl later on introduced this KGB agent to Fidel, and Fidel, let me tell you, was never a Marxist, Leninist, or anything like that. He just wanted to stay in power. And I know, because I was named first in the armed forces, and then after that, they sent me to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because I decided to study diplomatic and consular law. So then they sent me to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they made me chief of an office to prepare the new consuls that were taking over the position of the other consuls that were being taken out because they were named there by the dictatorship. So I trained the new ones that were coming, that were going to take the place of the old ones. And most of them were sent by Raúl Castro. Raúl Castro sent these people that I had to prepare, and then they were named in different places, you know. And I did that for a while, but then I saw that the revolution was going to be communist, because Fidel Castro himself one day said, I am a Marxist-Leninist, we're going to do this because we want to, do a new thing here in Cuba for the humble people, and we want to do this and we want to do that. So anyway, I said, okay, if this is going to be a communist revolution, that's not what we fought for. And my friends that died in the revolution, the martyrs of the revolution, did not die for this. So that was a betrayal to them and to us and to everybody that had fought. I approached a lot of people, and some people said, I'll do what Fidel does. They just said, that's what they told me. I'll do what Fidel tells me. But I didn't have to do that, So then we started getting together, and finally we formed a group, and we started doing things. Again, I can tell, the only motivation is that he wanted to stay in power. So then he knew that the United States was going to turn against him, and Cuba has always had a lot of influence, from the United States. We had the Platt Amendment after Cuba was liberated from Spain. We always had a lot of problems. We had interventions, and we had, a lot of influence, sometimes good, sometimes bad, from the United States. So he knew that if he said that he was Marxist-Leninist, then he would have the backing of the Russians, of the Soviet Union, which was what existed at the time. And that would give him the power to stay. And I know, because a lot of people, I kept on seeing Fidel sometimes, and others in different events. And I remember one day that I was talking to a very close friend of mine that was very close with Fidel and Raúl. And he told me, Pedro, listen, we're going to stay here a very long time. And stay with us. Come with us. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. We'll be fine and we'll be safe. And I said, you know what? I can't do that. I can't do that. I don't hate you for what you're telling me, because God did not give me the drawer, in my heart to keep hate. But I don't like communism. It was sad to see that the revolution that I had fought for had been betrayed. And not only, like I said, for me, but my friends that had died fighting were betrayed. So they had died in vain, And they were venerated, they were naming the schools in their names, they were naming everything in the names of the martyrs, and at the same time they were betraying those martyrs, which is very sad. That is sad. But I mean, I didn't have a problem with starting to fight again, no, on the contrary. I thought that it was my duty to do that, and I still think it is. Okay, and I'm still doing it, and I will not release that, and I will not stop until I see my country free. The last time that I saw Fidel, I was in some kind of a meeting that they had with some tourist delegations. That was like a late 1960. And I remember that one of the delegations gave him this big thing, this big, with his name and like a square, like a picture to hang on the wall, And when they gave it to him, he went like this to see if he had something inside. And then he looked at me and he said, hey, and he gave it to me. And I said, well, if this explodes now, it's going to kill me. So I took it home, and I said, you know what? This guy gave me this, so if it exploded, not to explode in his ass, to explode in my hand. So I'm going to take it home now. And you know what? Next morning, like at 7:30, his secretary called my house. Conchita. Hello, Pedro, how are you doing? Yes. Okay, Fidel told me that you have to bring this to his office today. So I brought it to but I didn't talk to him about that. He was saying it publicly, you know. He was saying it publicly in TV and to the international press and to everybody. He had already taken over the businesses of the American companies in there and other companies. They had started the agrarian reform. They had taken the land from my family, and he even took the land from his father, from Angel Castro. I mean, it's unbelievable. The agrarian reform was, you know, they took everything.
Pedro Fuentes a studiat dreptul diplomatic și consular la Havana și Paris. Din 1989 a practicat avocatura în Florida. În tot acest timp s-a dedicat cauzei cubaneze, a sprijinit mișcările dizidente și a oferit ajutor financiar și moral foștilor deținuți politic din Cuba. Din 2002 este purtătorul de cuvânt al Asociației Deținuților Politic Cubanezi.
Everything was controlled by the revolution, and then that's why today Cuba is the poorest, one of the poorest countries in the world. Okay? One of the poorest countries in the world today. I had my wife and I had a kid. My kid was, okay, he was born in Havana. When I was caught, when they went ahead and arrested me, it was weird because I had told my wife that, you know, if they come to arrest me, I don't want to be in prison here. I'm going to fight with the people that come to arrest me. So she said, well, you know, they may kill you. And I said, well, you know what? I'd rather be dead than in prison. So I remember talking to her about that. So we already had little Pedro, and we were living there in Havana, and one day I was visited by a friend of mine, Aureliano Sanchez Arango, the ideologue of the social democratic movement in Latin America. His son came to see me. We were working together in this the revolution against the communists, and he said, Pedro, we have to pick up some arms in this house, some machine guns and bullets, and I knew where the arms were because we had kept them there. So I knew the place, and I knew the lady, and I told Alfredo, you think this is a trap? And he said, no, I don't, but you know, we have to go pick it up. And I said, okay. So we went to that house. We started putting the machine guns and the bullets in suitcases. And finally, we took it down. It was on the second floor, downstairs. The lady, before we left, said, what if they stop you with these arms? What would you guys do? And I told her, I was the one that answered to her. I said, we will not be taken prisoners. You know, when you're doing these things, you have to have safe houses and a place where you can keep the arms and a place where you can keep the bullets. We had established, for example, a hospital in another house. This big house, we had a hospital there for urban guerrillas. We had anybody wounded, he could be taken to that house, and they were private homes, you know. So after we loaded the car and we took off, there was these guys with machine guns. By another car went by our car, said, stop right there. stop, with machine guns coming out of it. So I told Alfredo, put on the brakes, go slow, and let's see if they put their car in front of ours or behind. If they put it behind, then let's run and see if we can make it to the Argentinian embassy, which was on Malecon Drive. And he said, okay. So he slowed down, and they put their car in the back. They opened the doors and they went out. Come out right now, with your hands up. They went with it, they had their weapons, you know. So then I said a very bad word to the guy, and I started shooting at him. And we had a shootout. I started shooting with my pistol. Alfredo didn't have much training with guns and everything else. So he had a Browning pistol, but he was using Russian ammunition. So on the second shot, more or less, he got stuck. He couldn't shoot anymore. But mine worked perfect. I kept on shooting at them, and then I had a machine gun also, you know, a Thompson machine gun. And I was shooting at the chauffeurs because there was one car and then later on 2 cars. They were shooting at us. They hit our car, 147 bullet holes. Yes, somebody had the curiosity to count them when the car was impounded, and we found out. 147 bullet holes. The bullets were inside that car like incredible. Didn't touch us. It's like the hand of God was, you know, on top of our heads. So anyway, we had that big shootout, then they shot out the tires, and the car crashed against the wall, against the Malecon wall. Crash. I was kneeling on the front seat by the driver, you know, shooting back. And then I hit my head and my back against, you know, when it was a very hard hit. And I was unconscious. And my friend that was driving broke the wheel with his chest. He was also unconscious. So when I woke up, we were on top of the Malecon. I don't know if you have been in Havana. Okay. Anyway, all over the place. Don't move, don't move, don't move. This captain friend of mine came over. It's a captain that he used to call El Magnifico. He had trained with me in Dominican Republic. So he tried to rescue me. You know, he told the security people that the armed forces wanted me to be their prisoner. And then they, at the beginning, since he was high-ranking, they let him, but then they said, no. So then they brought me back, and that's how I started doing 16 years as a political prisoner. First, they were asking for the death penalty, for Alfredo and for me. They wanted to shoot us by firing squad. In Cuba, they have the Roman law is the basis of the legal system. And then there is what they call a fiscal petition. A fiscal petition was of death for Alfredo and for Pedro, for me. Death penalty by firing squad. It may seem weird, you know, but deep inside of me, I knew that they were not going to shoot me. Why? I don't know, but I knew it. I can swear, I knew it. And I remember that one day I received, there was a visit. Our family used to visit there. My wife used to come see me with my little son. The last time I saw him in Cuba, he was like 2 years old. When I saw him again, he was 19 years old. Okay, so anyway, I received some news from somebody that I knew there, some family of a friend of mine that had come from Miami, and they said, listen, I have very good news for you from Carlos Prio. the ex-president. He asked me to tell you that they're not going to shoot you, okay? They're going to give you a long sentence, but they're not going to shoot you. Aureliano had a lot of friends in Latin America. For example, at that time, Rómulo Betancourt was probably the president of Venezuela. Then there was Don Pepe Figueres, was the president of Costa Rica, and the Janio Quadros was the president of Brazil. López Mateo was the president of Mexico. Anything. Anyway, 5 presidents intervened. 5 presidents. They asked Fidel Castro not to shoot us. And then on my father-in-law's side, his first cousin, which was like a brother to him, was Che Guevara's right-hand man. And he also interceded with Che on my behalf. I knew Che Guevara. I had been in his house. And he named me and others like the head of the called the Rebel Youth, and an organization that then later it became the Communist Youth, but not with me, you know. I mean, not with me. I was just the Rebel Youth, okay, but then Communist Youth, no. I was imprisoned then.
Pedro Fuentes Cid este unul dintre cei mai longevivi dizidenți anticomuniști din Cuba. De mai bine de 30 de ani, militează pentru eradicarea corupției în Cuba, pentru libertate și pentru justiție socială. A călătorit în toată lumea pentru a face cunoscută situația din țara sa natală și pentru a obține susținere internațională pentru cauza cubaneză.